As I had said in the first episode of the podcast, being or feeling stuck can be paralyzing. In order to get unstuck, you may need to know what's holding you back and what it is that will make life's second half more fulfilling. And it's okay to need a little help navigating the complexities of what could be a midlife pivot or a greater understanding of the gray area in your life. Our guests today are in the business of helping people reflect on their experiences and create tangible and sometimes intangible results in their clients' pursuit of a more purpose-filled life. Health, wellness, career, family, life, and the better side of 50. I'm your host, Michelle Folan, and this is Asking for a Friend. Welcome, everybody. Today's guests are both life coaches who have joined forces to help others through self-reflection and cultivating new skills in order to inspire intentional action towards a purpose-filled life. Jill Daylor is a certified professional coactive coach and a registered yoga teacher, and Billy Lahr is currently the host of the Mindful Midlife Crisis podcast. I love the name of your podcast, by the way. And he also spent 21 years as an educator before he began helping others navigate their own midlife crisis. Welcome, Jill and Billy.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you for having us.
I've never done an interview with two people, so this is going to be fun. There are a few reasons I was really interested in having you both on the show. Primarily, though, it's because women in this age group are sometimes in a place where the transitions of life, and I'm talking we're empty nesting, we're taking care of our aging and sometimes ill parents. We may be at a crossroads with our partnerships, like as in our spouse. There's just a lot of things. I'm just not always sure we know where to start the process of self-discovery to make our lives more fulfilling at this point.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think you both bring some experiences to the table that provide some empathy for your clients. And we'll start with you, Jill. If you could tell the audience just a little bit about your journey.
Absolutely. I was in corporate America for about 30 years. All of those roles had something to do with leadership, customer service, whatever it might be. I think I just got to a point in my last role is really understanding I'm not at all aligned with my values for myself and what's going on with this company. It's now time for me to step out. And at that time, I had just started the yoga studio. I was fortunate to be in a position to be able to take my yoga studio full time and be able to quit my job, which was fantastic. That was really great. And prior to that, I had taken my life coaching certification because I was in the process of having a tough time at a previous job. I had a friend that was going through the certification process, and she was just like, "Hey, I'm looking for clients at a discounted rate. Are you interested?" And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I am. As I was going through the process, I really discovered how much I enjoyed it and how much that application of being a life coach really fit in with what I was already doing as a leader in all of my different roles. So it felt like a really natural transition. To your point, Michelle, about being at that place where I was just feeling like I was stuck and not sure where to go. I knew I needed to do something, but I wasn't quite sure how to do it. And I think for me, that's where the life coach really came in and helped me. I took on a life coach in May of 2015. And there were some pretty big things that we were going through with my husband and I and my career. Within 3 weeks, we had decided to move back to Minnesota, moved our location from our condo in Chicago, rented a house in Minnesota, and we were gone and moved within 3 weeks. It just really changed my life for the better in that role. It was just something that I really wanted to be able to give to other people with the experience that I had had.
Oh, that's great. It's very relatable, too, because I'm sitting here nodding my head, but in those shoes, too. Billy, what do you want to share? Because I think your story is similar.
I've never been in corporate America. I worked in education for 21 years. The thing about education is it's extremely regimented when you're a teacher. And I like that. I like structure. I like when bells tell me when to transition into new things. I like knowing that I have 50 minutes in a class period or 85 minutes in a class period to complete a task. That's how my brain runs. I like that. I transitioned then into a dean position after 15 years of teaching English. And that was a little bit different because there was more flexibility in that structure. The only problem with being a dean of students is that nobody likes the dean of students. Like, they make movies about the dean of students, and that person is always the bad guy. Never have they made the dean of students who is the hero. That was my life in education those last 6 years, was that I was always the bad guy. I was always delivering bad news. I would call parents, and parents would say, "Oh, now what did my kid do?" And it's like, why do we have to start the conversation like that? It was really wearing me out, especially with COVID. That was an extremely difficult time as well. But I had always had the mindset that I was going to teach overseas, or that I was going to take a leave at some point for a year because I could do that contractually, and then do some traveling. That's what I did in 2021, 2022, is I took a leave from my job. I went to Portugal for 2 months. I went to Spain for 2 weeks. I paddleboarded off the coast of Africa because it's my goal to paddleboard off the coast of every continent. Came back to the States for a while to reset, and then went to Puerto Vallarta for a month, and then spent 3 months in Korea. During that time, I just realized that I don't want to go back to a job where I don't feel valued. I just had a really difficult time being somebody who constantly delivered bad news. Jill and I joked about this last week, as I finally came to the conclusion that, oh, wait, I'm a people pleaser. So probably wasn't in my best interest. It wasn't a good fit for me to be a dean of students. You're always being hated on, that kind of thing. I actually resigned way back in November of 2021. I didn't have this realization until a couple weeks ago. I was talking to a guest. His name is John McCaskill, and he's going to be, I don't know, it's episode 68 or 69 or something like that. But he has a podcast called Men Talking Mindfulness. He's a certified mindfulness teacher. He used to be a commander in the Navy SEALs. He's now retired. He was talking about how when he retired from being in the Navy SEALs, he, in a sense, lost that identity. There was a grieving process that he had to go through. When I resigned in November, I didn't have that. I was really floundering. When I got to January, I thought to myself, okay, I have to make this podcast grow or I'm going to I'm going to sink, I'm going to be homeless, that kind of thing. And I tried to do too much, and I wasn't really structured and focused. It took me a long time to recenter. When I finally recentered, there was probably about 2 weeks left in my time in Korea, and it was about mid-June. I still have this passion for helping people. I know I don't want to go back into education. I don't want to go into corporate America because I was taking this job coaching class. None of the corporate America jobs really seemed to speak to me. Well, I would like to do this coaching and this teaching around mindfulness and around emotional intelligence. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do it by myself. So I sent a text to Jill, and I'm like, hey, I've got this idea for a coaching program where we mix mindfulness, and we have these behavior assessments in there, these personality assessments in there, and we're just trying to help people live a more purpose-filled life. Jill, what did you text back?
Fuck yeah.
I knew that I had the right person to join with me, so I was super excited about that, and now here we are, continually building this program that we're planning to launch in January. It's been a blast.
What I like about the duo is that you both bring different backgrounds, if you will, in regard to your previous employment, the structure and the jobs that you had. You've also done your own pivot. I think it's very relatable, and like I said, I think you bring a lot of empathy to this. I think for women in this age group, midlife, so 50 plus, maybe some of them have been living vicariously through their children, and maybe they've lost their sense of self. It may not always be a new job. It could be a new hobby. Maybe they've wanted to learn to paint, travel, maybe a new relationship. Oh, maybe we're losing our parents too. It sounds like you all are in that space.
Absolutely, Michelle. I would say that you pretty much hit on all the things that I've gone through myself. Pivot into a career, taking on something new. I actually just closed my yoga studio because of different things that are happening with the pandemic and not being able to make that afloat. In the midst of all of that, lost my mother. Definitely can relate to understanding there's a grieving process, there's transition, there's the loss of identity on all sorts of levels. I was a daughter to a mother that I no longer have. I was a yoga teacher. I'm not teaching currently anymore. I was a studio owner. I don't have the studio any longer. I was in corporate America. I can't identify with that anymore. It's really got me to this place of understanding who am I, stripped away down to all of it. And I think when Billy reached out, it was just like, this is an opportunity for us to be able to create something that we can take our experiences and really be able to support others with that. I think that age group of what I have found also with women that I work with at the yoga studio, like those were the students that were coming to me for the first time with yoga, coming in saying, oh, I'm just looking to stretch. And it's just like, oh, okay, I'll give you a stretch. Like, really, let's get into this. Really seeing women understand how they can feel into their body again, really understand what the breath can do for them. I don't teach yoga where I'm going to be showing up on the yoga journal. It's trying to be accessible. So those are the things that I like to bring in now with my private yoga practice, and then also with getting students and my clients to just really come down to the basics of that awareness of self. And what does that mean? Let's start to make these adjustments slowly. It's not about how can I change my entire life.
It's baby steps.
Absolutely.
At this point, we've got 30 plus years to go.
Mm-hmm.
We get to decide what that looks like. We just need a little push, I think, in some cases, to figure out what that is going to look like. That brings me back to reflect, learn, grow, because it's clear you two have put a lot of thought into this program and what you want it to look like and what you want it to accomplish. Can you touch on that and what your plans are?
Jill and I come at this from a very different point of view, and we joke about this because Jill's a little more woo-woo. I'm a little more data. I like concrete evidence. And so I'm bringing in these behavior assessments like the PSS-10, the Perceived Stress Scale, and Mindful Attentive Awareness Scale. Collecting that hard data. And then we have a personality profile test that we use. Not too dissimilar from Myers-Briggs, but it's definitely not Myers-Briggs. And then we have our clients do an assessment on that as well. That satisfies my data brain. But then there's the emotional intelligence piece that we come at differently. I'm someone who does not subscribe to the follow your dreams, follow your passions mentality. But Jill, you have a different take on that, and I think it brings in a different audience. It brings in a different clientele for us because some people might jive with Jill, some people might jive with me. One of my favorite quotes is from a past guest of mine that said, I may not be everybody's cup of tea, but I'm definitely somebody's shot of bourbon. That's kind of the mentality that the two of us take when we work with people is like, hey, if we're not a fit, you're probably a better fit with Jill. If we're not a fit for either one of us, let's find someone that you do jive with. We're not trying to take your money if it's not working out. Let's figure out who works best with you.
I think part of the reason that we also developed with the assessments is that oftentimes in various corporate roles or teaching roles, whatever it is, you take these assessments to get an understanding about yourself and about your team. How is it that you can come together to be able to achieve a common goal? Well, generally these things are just put out there and then nothing ever happens with them. Well, why not take these tests that you can utilize and understand them, and then how you can do those things to be able to achieve your goal? So that's why the program is for 6 months. What's the goal that you're trying to accomplish in 6 months? I bring in the wheel of life and understand, okay, you have these 8 areas of your life. Which one of these areas is your goal focused on? And as we work through the 6 months, you're focused on that one particular goal. However, what I generally see with clients is that all of a sudden, all of these different areas of your life that you may not have been 100% satisfied with are now starting to shift and change because you've dedicated your time to one area. Because once you move one area, the rest of the life just kind of gets a little bit more satisfying and fulfilling. It's nice to be able to see that progression.
And another thing that I wanted to make sure that we did too was, as a practitioner of mindfulness and the beneficiary of a mindfulness practice, is that we help people cultivate a mindfulness practice so that they can relieve that stress, so that they can become more mindfully aware, that can also be more in tune with what emotions they are bringing to any given situation. After that mindfulness practice, we have them do what's called an emotional inventory. The emotional inventory is front and back of just feeling words, and they can range from, on the simple end, happy, to on the other end, sad or angry. They are specific words that you circle and identify, and you can be feeling ecstatic and confused and depleted all at the same time. Those are more specific words than feeling happy and sad. As the former English teacher, I take pride in expanding other people's vocabularies. I think that's important too, that we are expanding their ability to communicate exactly how they are feeling in any given situation, particularly a situation that requires clear communication.
Ooh, that's really important. And I'll tell you why. I think a lot of people, and not just women, we sometimes lose our ability to communicate what we really want and what we really need. We almost suffer in silence at times and kind of suck it up rather than make waves. We want to be the peacemakers. What you're telling me is you're helping people learn how to communicate in a way that is well received because you can attach words and feelings to it. Am I correct with that?
Absolutely.
Jill and I are from Minnesota, so we know all about passive-aggressive behavior and not wanting to get in conflict.
However, I think I might secretly be from New York. I generally don't get down with that. Just be direct, right? Like, give it to me.
I'm getting better at that, I think.
I think you're right, Michelle. I was just thinking about that. I feel like every one of us could probably have a situation within the last 48 hours where we decided not to say something, just not to make waves. Just how you have to eat your words and not feel like you are able to express yourself. Because I know for me, previously, I would not be able to communicate because I would burst out into tears because I felt like the only way that I could communicate is that I needed attention, so I needed to cry for it. Unlearning, I guess I would say, that behavior so that I could feel sad or feel overwhelmed with what it was that I had to say, but yet still be able to communicate in a way that it was received.
Jill, you just don't seem like a crier to me.
You know, I'm soft on the inside, hard on the outside.
Okay. Yeah.
Billy may have some kind words to say about that.
I'll tell you what, so the reason why I wanted to work with Jill is any of our friends, particularly my friends, Jill's brother-in-law, and that circle that we used to run with, that group of hooligans that we used to terrorize Jill 20 years ago, even though we did terrorize Jill, I'm sure make her want to pull her hair out, we all respected her so much because she's a boss.
Yeah.
She's an absolute boss. That's why I didn't want to work with anybody else. Just to clarify, I don't have my life coaching certification yet. I'm sort of riding Jill's coattails here. I'm pushing the ideas on her and sending the resources on to her. And she's like, ooh, I like that. Now let me make it better.
Because she is that good.
She is. She really is.
Do you guys use the Enneagram at all in your assessment?
No, we don't.
Okay.
No, not at all. And I'm actually not super familiar with that. I know that's kind of all the rage these days, along with Myers-Briggs. Interestingly, I'm moving back to Korea here at the end of the week, oddly. Myers-Briggs is huge in Korea.
Oh, interesting.
It's funny being a single guy, and if you're on dating apps, they all put their Myers-Briggs personality on their dating apps. That is very, very interesting. I feel like because we have this personality profile test that we are going to have to hit the Korean market here really hard and sell them on, hey, we have a program that gets you to reflect on your personality profile, and we're helping you identify what your strengths are and your weaknesses are and what we call your high gear behavior. That's your default behavior. And the thing is, I think what Myers-Briggs misses, and I think what Enneagram misses, and I don't know much about it, so I could be wrong here, but I think specific what Myers-Briggs misses is it pigeonholes you into this one personality trait. When people start to communicate, oh, I'm an ENFJ. But sometimes maybe at work you're a different personality type. And when you're in social settings, you're a different personality type. And when you're at home, you're another personality type. So what we do is we say, hey, this is your default personality type right here. And we want you to take a look at these strengths. How many of these strengths do you identify with? How many of these weaknesses do you identify with? Okay, great. Let's talk about that. But then on the opposite end, whatever you scored lowest in that personality profile assessment, we call that your low gear behavior. You have strengths in your low gear that you're able, some of those strengths, but it requires a lot of energy. And when you do use those strengths, you're wiped out afterwards. So what we want to do is we want to help clients identify 3 strengths in that low gear personality type that we can say, all right, let's figure out, now that we've kind of done these assessments here, let's figure out ways to boost these so you can get more of what it is that you want, so you can feel a more purpose-filled life.
And I totally agree with the personality differences, how you react to people and situations. It's way different at home than at work or in a social situation. My feeling about that is that we're much nicer to people at work and in social situations than we are to people at home a lot of the times.
And I would be curious, too, to see how that shows up in people who work remotely from home. Because that home atmosphere, you have a certain personality type. But in work, you may have a different personality type. So I'd be curious to talk to people who work remotely and see if there isn't a shift, or if they just kind of in that one personality type all day, every day, and how much of that feels monotonous. I need that separation of a work building and a home building. I would not do well. I did not do well working remotely. Mm-hmm. I didn't do well working remotely from home. But if I had an office where I could work remotely, that would be excellent. I also crave that socialization. I don't know, Jill, what your experience was like.
I think for me, I was definitely siloed in all areas of life. What I've been working toward here as I've gotten wiser is trying to be just one person. For me, it's exhausting to be somebody different at work, to be somebody different at home, to be somebody different with my friends. You just get one me, and that's my authentic self. I feel that was part of me leaving corporate America. I was my true self. That wasn't something that was necessarily working out. I was given feedback that I was too direct. And I'm like, well, hold on a second. Am I direct being an asshole? Or am I direct giving you my expectations of what I'm looking for from you? It never really came around to what it was, but I don't think I'm an asshole. Billy, like you said, I've known you for over 20 years. I'm a direct person. I'm not going to beat around the bush. And I don't want to say make you feel good. That's not what it's about, but it's just about, I'm just going to give you my honest feedback. You're always going to get my honesty. And it's not meant, and my intentions are always to serve you and to help elevate you. It has nothing to do with me. I guess for me, that was part of leaving, is that I didn't get to be my authentic self, that one person, so that I wasn't 3 different people at any given time.
Jill wants a job where she can tell someone to shut the fuck up, is really what it comes down to, and not receive a consequence for it.
I think she's giving you the hairy eyeball, is what we call it.
I am giving you the hairy eyeball.
But you know what? This is just a anecdotal funny story. I had on the show a sex and relationship therapist, and she said COVID brought in clients whose husbands were working from home. Their spouses were going, I like him at home. I don't like the person he is at work. I don't like how he speaks to people. I don't like how he acts. It sent people into counseling because they realized that their partner was 2 different people. Mm-hmm. There was the home person, and then there was the work person, and they didn't like the work person. So I thought that was interesting how even when you're under the same roof, you're 2 different people. Mm-hmm. That would be exhausting. That did happen, I think, during the pandemic. I had brought up the Enneagram before, and the reason I brought that up is because I'm reading a book about the Enneagram.
What does that mean? Because I don't know anything about that. What does that mean?
I think it's helpful for those of us that we all have people in our families that have different personalities. It does talk about how you may leach into, if you're an 8, you may have 9 tendencies or 7 tendencies, but 8 is your core. But I took the test 3 times because I didn't want to be a 3, which is what the Enneagram kept telling me I was a 3. For some reason, I just didn't want to be a 3, but I was a 3 every single time. Your base personality is anywhere from a 1 to a 9, and there's attributes associated with each of those. A 9 can have tendencies to have some 8 or a 1, like a 1 could have 9 or 2 tendencies. It's just interesting to take, and everybody loves to take those tests. So whether it's Myers-Briggs, it's Enneagram, people love to take those because I think they really want to learn more about themselves, which is what I love about what you're doing. I know you guys are starting this program in January. If someone is interested in getting started now, they're at a point in their life when they really want some help in feeling more fulfilled in midlife. They're ready for a life pivot. How would you suggest they could get started now?
Well, I think one way that people can get started with me is I'm offering my life coaching services. I'm also doing private yoga. So depending upon what they're inspired to do, if they want to incorporate a little bit of the movement with breath work and with coaching, that can happen that way. And I know we may be getting some things out a little bit sooner. I know we've been doing a bunch of different information that we're putting out on social media. So Billy, I'll let you talk about that a little bit more.
We actually packaged up the Wheel of Life assessment, the perceived stress scale assessment, the mindful awareness attention scale assessment, and the personality profile assessment, wrapped them all into one and said, hey, here it is. If you want to do just a quick assessment of where you are baseline, here you go. And you can access that if you go to www.mindfulmidlifecrisis.com. And if you sign up for the newsletter, I'm pumping that out weekly here. I actually just started doing that so people can access that and take a look at it. And then I would say, if you have questions about it, you can contact Jill, you can contact me. If you're not in a financial situation where you can work with a coach, then you can listen to the Mindful Midlife Crisis podcast because we got all sorts of information on there too. But this is one thing that I wish I would have done even during my travels, and I didn't feel like I could justify it because I wasn't working. I was spending money having experiences, which are excellent teachers, but I was also going through a lot of changes. When you travel solo, you're isolated a lot. I think people forget about that, and they tend to romanticize this idea of solo travel, and it's like, no, you actually spend a lot of time alone. I wish that I would have invested in either working with a life coach or a therapist. And I say invest because that is you building up yourself 1% better. Yes, you are spending money. You can find ways to afford those kind of things if you want to prioritize it. I really think if you take a look at what am I spending my money on, are you spending your money on things that allow you to invest in yourself? Because you're your number one commodity. How do you build upon that? I think therapy, I think coaching are excellent forms of investment. I actually just signed up for BetterHelp.com. If anyone is a routine podcast listener, you always hear about BetterHelp. I just signed up for it because I'm going back to Korea in a week. That's a big change. I'm going back to Korea with a lot of uncertainty. I'm so used to working in absolutes, and I'm so used to working with structure that I need to be able to process that with somebody. And that's why I love team teaching this or tag teaming this with Jill, because a lot of times we start off by checking in with each other, and then it gives me particularly an opportunity to spew out all of these ideas that I have for the program. Of course, they're all golden in my head. We write them out on the big whiteboard. Then we're like, okay, that was a lot of word vomit. Let's put this in an organized fashion. There should be a rhyme and reason to why we're putting things together. That's the beauty of processing. You might have a good friend or a family member who is able to help you process that. The thing is that puts a lot of responsibility on them. I think you can rely on them for a little while, but if you're finding that you're still stuck, then it's time to work with a professional, whether it's a coach, whether it's a therapist. You have to make sure that you're not relying on them. You're not codependent on them so much either.
I really appreciate you bringing that up. There should be no stigma in getting help, whether it's a therapist or a life coach. I want people to feel free to do that without feeling odd or like they're weak. Number two, one of the tenets that I started this show on is that it is okay and necessary to put yourself first once in a while. If people, women especially, would start thinking in those terms, I just think they would feel so much more empowered to take the step, to be part of your program and to go out and get that help. Thank you for bringing that up. Billy, I would love for you to tell people about your podcast because it's super engaging and really awesome. It's called the Mindful Midlife Crisis Podcast, and please tell the listeners about it.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I really enjoy doing the podcast. It's a podcast for people navigating the complexities and possibilities of life's second half. And we cover a wide array of topics. We cover communication, we cover relationships, we cover parenting, we cover careers and finances, we cover diversity, equity, and inclusion and why that's important as we get older. We talk about emotional intelligence, mental health, we talk about physical health. I'm a certified personal trainer. It's important that as we age, we continue to build muscle. So we talk to personal trainers. We've had Jill on twice to talk about her story and how she got to being a life coach and how she transitioned into that position. But then we also had her come on and process with my co-host, who he's no longer my co-host. My co-host, Brian, and I, and the reason why he's no longer co-host is because he is transitioning into his passion project, which is his band Gen X Jukebox. And it was just taking up too much time. We weren't able to be on the same page. But he and I recorded probably about 75 episodes together. We've been doing it for a year and a half. We just really enjoy having the conversations with experts, and we have people come on that share their life stories. Sometimes those are more fun. I mean, I love talking to the experts and getting their take on things, and we try and pride ourselves on asking questions that the experts haven't been asked a million times. But I remember episode 3 is where I share my story about how I had to navigate anxiety and depression and suicidal ideation. And I did that going to therapy, and I did that using mindfulness. It's pretty powerful when you get a text message from somebody who you kind of know, they're more of an acquaintance, and they say, hey, I just wanted to let you know that after hearing your story, I sent that episode to my brother, and it has opened up a conversation about mental health for the two of us. He had been struggling with his mental health, and I didn't know how to have that conversation with him. And because of your episode, now we have an open dialogue about it. I'm like, that sounds awesome. Do the two of you want to come on the show and talk about it? And they were like, yes. I think, too, it's important that the fact that it's men talking about mental health, and there's a stigma and there's a shame around men talking about their mental health. Here we are talking about it openly and being honest about it. We're not just bringing on random people. We're actually finding experts who have published books on their area of expertise to talk about emotional health, to talk about emotional intelligence, to talk about fitness, those things. These conversations, they light me up. I love having these conversations. It takes me back to the classroom a little bit too. I feel like I'm constructing a lesson plan in all of it too, because when I'm doing a season, I like to have a theme for the season or maybe a theme for a series of episodes. It feels like being back in the classroom again and sharing whatever knowledge or whatever experiences I have along with the knowledge and experiences that experts have as well. Like I said, it was really nice to have Jill come on. We called them the summer session episodes because I had come back from my travels. Summer session 1 through 6, I kind of talked about where I was, my mindset at the beginning, and then where I was when I came to this realization that I want to be back in Korea because that's where I feel the most energized. That's where I feel the most connected. It was a lot of fun to have Jill on to do those processing questions that she does with her clients.
That's awesome. And I really recommend the listeners to check out Billy's podcast. Jill, I follow you on Instagram. I want to read one of your posts because it really resonated with me, and I think it fits very well with the conversation today. You said, I am free from what no longer serves my higher purpose in life. I commit to what makes me happy and brings me joy. Fuck the rest. I've spent too much energy on that bullshit. I went, yes, after I read that. I was like, yay. That's just about everything I need to say to cover everything that I feel some days.
Yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
See, that's what I meant. See, you guys thought that I was over-exaggerating. I was not. I said what I said because I know Jill just wants to say things like that.
Exactly. I just want to say that this is my true belief that everything we need, we have in us already. We just need to discover it again. I also believe that it's never, ever too late for reinvention. And I think I might just leave it right there.
That's a good mic drop moment right there.
The two of you, I wish you both the best of luck with your new program. And again, I will make sure to put everything in the show notes, how to get a hold of you, your Reflect, Learn, and Grow program, any information that you have that you can send me if there's something else you want me to add. I'm happy to do that to support you. I think what you're doing is fantastic.
Thank you. And if people want to take a look at the landing page for the Reflect, Learn, Grow program, they can go to Jill's coaching page, which is www.jilldahlor.com. So www.jilldahler.com, because she is way more savvy about getting that stuff on her website than I am. So thank goodness. This is why I told you that I'm riding her coattails.
Oh, it's a good partnership.
It is. It certainly is.
And I hope Jill doesn't feel it's one way.
I don't. I certainly do not.
I think she just rolled her eyes, but I'm not certain.
That would be nothing new.
Yeah. Well, listen, Jill and Billy, thank you so much for being here on the podcast today, and I hope we connect again.
We certainly will.
Would love that. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Follow Asking for a Friend on social media outlets and provide a review and share this show wherever you get your podcasts. Reviews and sharing help us grow.